EY recently announced splitting its auditing and advisory business. The plan would split up the firm's accountants and audit companies from its going consulting business, which advises companies on tax issues, deals, and technology. This breakup comes as regulators worldwide have pressured auditing firms to address conflicts of interest in their business. Regulators in many countries are concerned that consulting service the firms sell could undermine their ability to conduct independent audits of the public company's financials. This will lead to chaos, not just globally, but even in India. But before we go into the chaos and how it will impact the Indian economy and even the job market, let's understand the basics of how these large firms operate. So, how big are the big four? And how do the big four companies operate?
The operating model of the Big Four firm is quite unique. They like to call themselves as a multidisciplinary firm. So, which would mean that on one hand, a Big Four firm would compete with an IT consulting firm such as Accenture. On the other hand, it will compete with an Indian audit firm. And it could also compete with a tax advisory firm on one hand and a forensic investigator on the other. That is somebody who is conducting corporate investigations. Now, what has happened over the years is that the Big Four have become too big. The total revenue, if you consider the top line of the Big Four in India, it is around 22,000 crore. They have about 1,600 partners.
One thing to understand is how it has helped the small partner firms.
So, for instance, a partner makes, say, around rupees 12 crore. He and his team makes rupees 12 crore. What happens is the first 4 crore is directly taken away by the firm as a top line. The remaining 4 crore is the cost of salaries of the team and the rent to be paid. The remaining 4 crore the partner takes home as part of his partnership pool. This has given a unique opportunity for some of the first generation chartered accountants and MBAs to really grow over the years and really make money.
But there is also a flip side to it, the big fish eating away the smaller ones.
The Big Four, in their race to become big, has trampled on the feet of many other smaller firms, especially the Indian audit firms. In many cases, the Big Four have acquired some of these firms, or some of these firms have been put out of business altogether. The Indian government has been really trying to level the field. Many say that this is not a competition or this is not a fight that the Indian firms can win, at least in the short run.
In India, the big fours have had run-ins with regulator, specifically around conflict of interest over auditing and non-auditing service lines. So what happens if EY in India splits?
Now, if EY were to do it, regulators will tell Deloitte, PwC and KPMG to follow suit. This will also have a straightforward impact in India. In India, Ernst & Young is the biggest firm, biggest of the Big Four. It by revenue size, by the number of partners. If that happens with EY, the Indian regulators, including the NAFRA or the MC or the others, or SEBI, perhaps even the RBI, will ask these firms to make sure that there is no conflict of interest. And not just that, they'll also perhaps even ask these firms to split.
In the last few years, the Big Four have generated huge employment. They will continue to do so in the next few years as India becomes a hub for talent. They have also democratized the auditing business. So can Indian firms get a level playing field?
Big Four, as of now, are the biggest job generators. EY alone hires around 80,000 professionals in India. Big Four altogether, all set to hire anywhere around 1 lakh people in coming 1 year. Now, this also means that the opportunities that these firms give to Indian professionals is huge. Most Indians like to work in a multinational firm for the obvious reasons, because of better perks, because of better salaries. Also, before the Big Four came to India, the Indian auditing industry or the chartered accountants, CA firms that used to run in India were primarily run like a family business. That is, the father's business would be passed on to the son, whether or not he has talent. What happened after the Big Four came into the fold is the democratization of the profession to an extent, right? So Even if your father was not a renowned chartered accountant, you had a shot to rise through the ranks, to make money, to be known as a tax expert or to be known as an audit expert in the firm. But which also meant that because of the sheer size of the Big Four and the global push that they have, some of the good Indian firms, some of the firms started by a former Big Four partner or some of the very good professionals also started facing problems, especially around talent, retaining young chartered accountants who always had one job offer or the other from the bigger Big Four, bigger multinationals. Definitely a push from the government of India to create a professional, well-run audit firm in India. India has several very good law firms. It also has it has at least 5 to 7 very well-run tax specialized firms. But when it comes to audit firms, there is always a question mark that is being raised on Indian firms. The second thing that is crucial over here and which we must understand is that many of the multinationals, when they come to India, they seek comfort, and the closest they have for comfort is working with a Big Four firm with whom they have been working in, say, the US or the Europe. Now, this means that some of the Indian firms, irrespective of the good work they may or may not do, they will not be able to make inroads into these multinationals.
The question remains whether this split will impact the way the big firms hire in India, and how will it affect the job prospects of those employed.
The way these firms hire, especially for some of the work that the firms do for their overseas clients, would directly be impacted. Probably it will also happen that the number of people that these firms have promised to hire, that is around 1 lakh people that they might be hiring in next 12 months, may also come down. But on the other hand, which would also mean that some of the Indian firms, Indian audit firms especially, might benefit of it. But if this split were to happen, probably as far as the audit is concerned, the audit firms are concerned, they may be able to compete with the Big Fours and may have a level playing field. But what is interesting to see is whether this will also impact the way jobs are being created, especially for chartered accountants, MBAs and other professionals in these Big Four firms.